So we're going to look at a method for changing a quadratic function into vertex form, because vertex form is real nice to graph, and we'll want to graph it here in a moment. So to do that, we want to get it into this form: y equals ax minus h squared plus k, because these two things here show us the vertex. The vertex is h comma k. All right, and then this guy right here tells us the steepness or the shape of the graph. All right, we know it's a parabola, but we don't know if it's facing up, facing down, skinny, wide, what is it? So that's our goal, is to make this look like that form. All right, so to look like this guy over here. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to complete the square. Now this is method one. I got two methods I'll show you. All right, and so method one, we're going to be a little clever here, but it makes for a lot less writing. Okay, so when we complete the square, remember, we don't want this constant here. That constant's in the way. So in the past, when we had an actual number over here, when we were solving the equations, we just added over here. But we're going to try something a little different. I don't want to totally move it over there. What I want to do is I want to take g of x, and I'm going to take my x squared plus 2x, and I'm just going to stretch it out over there because I want to fill this with something here. I would like this to be a perfect square, all right? So I want this part right here to be a perfect square. So I got to ask myself, what do I add to make this a perfect square? Well, notice, by the way, there's a 1 in front of here, all right? So this works pretty nicely when there's a 1. It gets a little tricky when there's not, okay? So what we want to do is add half of this squared. So we take 2 over 1 squared, which is obviously 2 divided by 1 is 2, squared is 4, all right? So I want to add 4. That's cool. I'm welcome to do that, but I just changed the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little clever, and I'm going to take that 4 back. Now, by putting the plus 4 and the minus 4 in there, then I haven't changed the value of the whole equation, all right? So that's handy, because now, if I look at this part right here, I can factor that, okay? And so this gives me the function g of x equals, and this guy's going to factor. Two numbers that add to 2 and multiply to 1 is 1. Multiply to 4, sorry. Add to 2, multiply to 4. It's always going to be half of this. Remember that from completing the square. All right, so if you've done completing the square to solve an equation, that should be familiar. So there we have it, okay? So it's in vertex form. We notice that this is a 1. The a value is 1. So that means it's opening up, and that means it's going to look just like y equals x squared. But small difference is this: the vertex is going to be at -1, -10. Okay? So -1, -10, that's where our vertex is going to be. The reason it's -1 here is because this formula has x minus h. So think of this as minus 1. Okay? And it's plus k, so plus -10. It's always going to be the opposite. -1 is what makes this a 0. That can be helpful to think about too. So we're just going to sketch a quick graph of this. We know that we got a graph, a vertex at -1, -10. All right, so that's going to be all the way down here. Let's call that -10. Okay, -1 there. Now, if we wanted to do this precisely on a grid, we know that it's the same shape as y equals 1x squared. So to do that, we go right 1, up 1. There's a point. From the vertex, we go left 1, up 1. There's a point. If we go right 2 from the vertex, start at the vertex here. Okay, so if we start, let me zoom here a bit. If we start at the vertex, if we go right 2 squared is 4, so we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I know I don't have a grid here, so we'll imagine just a wee bit here. 2, 3, 4. Okay, there it is right there. And then we'd have on the opposite side. So, all right, we get a decent picture. We know it's going to be a parabola. That point's a little off there. Okay, but that's the idea. All right, so that's what our parabola will look like. And so the key is we took an equation that was not in vertex form, we changed it into vertex form, and now we can know where that picture is. All right? Let me show you one more where we don't have an a value of 1. It gets a little more challenging here, but let's check it out. All right, so let's try this guy. A little different here because we have the 2 in front. So we've got to find a way to deal with this 2. Well, first we're going to move that 9 out. Okay, now again, we're not going to totally get rid of it. 8x, it's just going to kind of move out and hang out off to the side. Okay, and the other method, we'll move it over to the other side. And it's an okay option, but it gets to be kind of ugly. So we'll avoid that. So now the problem is this 2 here. Remember, when we're completing the square, we need this to be a b value. All right, we need this to be 1, sorry, and this will be our b value. We want this to be 1 and this to be our b value. Okay, so let's do that. The way we can do that is we can factor out a 2, but we're just going to factor it out of these 2. Okay, so 2, and we have x squared minus 4x. Now if you were to simplify this whole thing, put the 9 out here. If you were to simplify this whole thing, then it would still come back to where we started. All right, remember, all of this would just simplify to this thing up here. Feel free to try it out. Now what we got to do is we got to say, well, what would you like to have here so that this is a perfect square? Because this is almost in y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So this is almost ready to factor. Well, what do we need? Half of this squared, negative 4 over 2 squared, is going to be negative 2 squared, which is positive 4. So we say, I wish I had a positive 4. All right, well, let's put a positive 4 there. Well, I just changed the value of it. So right next to it, I need to put a minus 4. Okay, now here's where it gets a little more challenging. What did I just add to this side? I didn't put, this. What is this worth, I should say? Is that worth negative 4? Not really. It's actually worth 2 times negative 4. So that's actually a negative 8. So what we're going to do is we want to leave these in the parentheses. That's all good. Now we want this guy to come out. Remember, we're going for this. Let's see here. We're going for y equals ax minus h squared plus k. That is the form. That goes right there, parentheses. That's the form we're looking for. Okay, we have this a, it's a 2. We have this k, well, it's going to change. But we want this middle to factor and leaving the a. That's what we want there, all right? So, to do that, we need to get this negative 4 out of here because we can't factor it as it is. So we're going to pull this guy out as a 2 times negative 4. Because the 2 is really a 2 times negative 4, all right? So that's going to leave us with something like this. G of x equals 2 times x squared minus 4x plus 4. And this will have a minus 8 plus 9. Okay, this one gets a little challenging here, all right? So this is going to be 2x minus 2 squared. So this factors into x minus 2. And this is negative 8 plus 9, which is plus 1. So now we have a value of 2, so it's going to be a little steeper. And our vertex comes from these numbers right here. Our vertex is going to be 2, 1. Okay? And that's what we need to graph. Let's go ahead and graph it here. So we got a vertex at 2, 1. So let's come over here. This is 5. Let's call that 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll call that. So we'll go by ones. Okay, so 2 positive 1. There's our vertex. And our a value is 2. So we're going to think about y equals 2x squared. But we're going to use this vertex here. So this is our vertex. Normally from the vertex, if we go right 1, from the vertex, if we go right 1, we go 1 squared, which is 1. And 2 squared is 4, so on and so forth. But this has a 2 in front, okay? So since this has a 2 in front, we're going to go up twice as fast. Okay, so 1 squared is 1, but we're going to double that height and go 2 higher. Now we're thinking of this as our, the vertex here is like our origin, okay? So ignore these axes for a moment. Everything's going from the vertex because we know the shape of this looks like a parabola. We know it's steeper. So we're just thinking of everything from this vertex, all right? So we have over 1. Instead of going up 1, we go up 2 because it's twice as fast. Normally, if we go over 2, 2 squared is 4. But we're going to double that. We're going to go up twice as fast. So 2 times 4 is 8. So from the height of the vertex, we're going to go up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right up there. All right? So there is our vertex right there. Not our vertex. I'm sorry. That is our next point. Now we know that this is symmetrical. We know the axis of symmetry goes right through the vertex. Okay? And so the axis of symmetry, by the way, is x equals 2. That's our axis of symmetry. Okay? And so we reflect these points across on the other side. They'll be exactly the same height. And we can, best we can, sketch our shape. And that gives us a pretty good idea of what we're going for. Okay? So that's how we do it. That's how we can find our vertex. A little challenging with this 2 out here. We can change into vertex form, but this is our vertex form right here. This last equation, that's our vertex form. This guy was standard form, what we started in. Okay, and we can find our vertex and our shape really easily from that. In another video, I'll show you kind of the second method, which instead of doing this kind of tricky business over here, we can move it all over to the left side. Move this 9 over to the left side. And that works, but it gets a little messy. And so if you understand this, you can keep things clean and simple, and it works a whole lot better. All right? All right, good luck.